Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. What we're going to do today is this is a joint collaboration between Microsoft and Netrix. Going to be talking about Copilot. We're going to get into different use cases in legal and HR, but again, these don't necessarily have to do that. Again, you're going to see techniques and things today that you could apply regardless of what, department you're sitting in today. So that really won't matter, but I'm going to kick it on over to Brett, and he's going to get us started before we get going on the demo. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Michael, and welcome everyone. My name is Brent Witchell, and I have been at Microsoft now. This month, believe it or not, I celebrate my 29th year at the company, and I have always been excited and blessed to be able to get out in front of customers just like each of you. These days, it's all about oil, gas, and energy customers. I'm assigned to 8 of our most strategic accounts within Microsoft. And really over the years, I've had this focus of getting out and demonstrating and showing the value of all the innovation that continues to get pumped out of Microsoft, typically around this theme, if you will, of productivity or collaboration or hybrid work or modern work. And so I'm thrilled to be here today because, as you know, just a few years back, there was this intersection of all the things that I had built a career around, this idea of collaboration, productivity, et cetera, and AI coming to bear. And so when you think of what Microsoft did to respond to that intersection of AI and productivity or collaboration, it really resulted in what we call M365 Copilot, which is what I'm going to talk about initially over the next 10 or 15 minutes. And then Michael's going to show off some of these amazing capabilities. My job at the beginning is really to kind of give you the journey that I have been front and center, as Michael has and many others, and kind of talking to customers and witnessing how they're approaching this journey and really using AI at work. And so one of the things that I get super excited about is making sure that each of you, if you're an employee of an organization and you sit in some department somewhere other than IT, I'm going to challenge you to take a screenshot of this next slide and ask yourself, hey, where do I sit in this journey that Brent just showed, right? If you're an IT professional within an organization, I want you to ask yourself, where as an organization am I participating in making sure that every one of the employees that are in the businesses that we support are in this journey? And so this is all about conquering work with M365 Copilot. And so just to give you an idea of what you're going to see today, you're really going to see, I think, things that are going to fall into steps 1 and 2. This is the employee journey of people just like each of you in HR, legal, or if you sit in sales, finance, IT, everybody kind of falls into these 4 categories or steps. And so you'll notice it starts with, and the most immediate thing that you should realize, and I have learned in my journeys, and I bet Michael has as well, is customers kind of gloss over step 1. A lot of times it's because the organization doesn't really know how to go after and get people fully embraced in step 1, right? And this is one of the most amazing value propositions that you have. Think of, if you will, the Office suite, right? Each of you probably find yourself using Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, right? And Outlook and Teams, and how they have really turned the volume up on the amplification of how productive you can be throughout the day, right? Think of Copilot in that same vein, if you will. Like, hey, this is going to immediately and exponentially increase my productivity, personal productivity, just by going through and understanding out of the box, the moment I get a license, what can I do with it, right? And so that is a moment that I would say is the foundation for you going through the other 3 steps here, right? And so once you conquer your personal productivity, then you move into things, and we're going to kind of blend those, I would imagine, today with Michael's demo, where he's going to show you some specific use cases for HR and legal that should really wake you up, right? But don't just jump to specific use cases. You want to make sure if you have a screen in front of you, when you're at work, that you're able to go back to step 1 and say, hey, I am ticking the box on conquering all of the things in step 1. And then we're not going to really address steps 3 and 4 today, but it's important that you realize the value that steps 1 and 2 take and have as you're going through steps 3 and 4. And so I just want to take a moment to dive through these. Step 1 is, again, exponentially and immediately increasing your productivity. So there's two very unique things that each of you should walk away every day realizing and thanking your organization for giving you that license, and that it's going to bring to you that is, again, very unique and different and valuable. And the first one is this idea. Most of us are very accustomed to going to our favorite AI tool of choice for the web as a consumer, and conquering the web, right? Now what we're able to do is with Copilot, we are able to help you conquer work. And the reason, the big part of that is because it gives you instant access to knowledge that we all are overwhelmed with at work. It also gives you great instant access to the web, but most of us just, take that for granted. The piece that we need to really start working and creating habits around is this idea of conquering work with all the instant access to knowledge throughout work. And so when we think about what does Brent mean when he says conquer work, think about all the Teams channel and in chat conversations that you have going on daily, all of the email that is in your inbox, all the documents and files that you have that either you created or somebody else created and shared, and maybe you even missed the fact that they shared it with you, right? That's all knowledge that exists in your organization that you have access to that you probably struggle with. Where is that, right? Think of all the departmental sites or the initiatives that you're a part of, Project Phoenix or whatever. And there's a SharePoint site where they've dropped a bunch of files or whatever conversations are happening there, right? Portals, entire portals within your organization. If they're built on Microsoft 365, that is fair game for Copilot to reason over those things to give you instant access to that knowledge. Also, and this is fairly new, probably over the last 6 months, we also can now go and reason over all of the Viva Engage communities that you are a member of and all those conversations that are taking place there. Again, all that knowledge that's happening, we can bring it right to a response within Copilot. All the meetings that are on your calendar, some of the artifacts perhaps for meetings that you missed but you followed. If you haven't followed a meeting, that's another thing that you probably want to find yourself figuring out how to do, because then you have all those artifacts that you're able to go and literally gain access to at any time, and get information and knowledge out of those meetings, and even preparing for meetings that are in the future, right? And there's so much more. So this idea, the very first thing I ask people to look for, and you should look for this as Michael goes through, is this idea of instant access to knowledge, right? The second thing that we blow people away with, and this is really a moment where I want to challenge each of you to look for new ways of engaging AI and all the tools that you use every day, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Outlook, OneNote, Whiteboard, etc. So this new productivity AI assistant Copilot is integrated seamlessly into all those experiences that you use every day. And so this is the one that if you haven't sunk your teeth into step one and conquered it and say, like Brent, I'm doing all the things that you just mentioned below those two very valuable parts of Copilot. If you haven't yet said, hey, I'm leveraging those daily, then I think there's work to do. And I would just encourage you, engage Microsoft, engage Netrix, and say, hey, how can we make sure that we put a plan in place to get people past step one? Then we get into step two. Once you realize all of the great things we do out of the box, right? You're then going to be equipped to say, hey, how can I apply a lot of those things like Michael's going to show you today for specific use cases for legal, HR? And we don't stop there. We're just choosing those today for this session, right? But there's IT pros that are using it for very specific things that are relevant to IT, finance, sales, executives, right? I do a ton of executive immersions, procurement people, help desk folks. There's different use cases that exist for each of those. I wouldn't encourage you to start with use cases. I would say, hey, make sure you've got that fundamental step one conquered and then move quickly to step two, right? And so this is, again, we'll probably stop after steps 1 and 2 today. But I do want to set the tone of why those two matter. I've seen a trend in a lot of organizations where they immediately, because sometimes we're dealing with just IT folks and they love to be inquisitive and they love kind of nerding out, for lack of better words, and they'll dive right into agents. And so everybody's looking for an agent to solve the world of productivity in an organization, and they play a amazing role, right? And there's different kind of agents that you'll learn about as you go on this journey. But it's important to realize we have seen where people over-engineer agents, quite frankly, because they didn't go back to steps 1 and 2. They didn't realize the power of steps 1 and 2 that I showed you prior And so they're going and creating agents, and they're over engineering those agents. And now they have an agent that they didn't need, perhaps, that they have to maintain. And so it's a logical step in progress that you want to make sure that you're following. And so there's different kinds of agents. Like we have first party agents, like Cowork is a fairly new one that we announced. We have researcher and analyst and finance. And again, these kind of play right along with this role specific. There's a lot of people that say, hey, I have to go do external competitive research. Great. If your role has you doing that, let me introduce you to researcher. And there's many ways to put researcher to work depending on what role you're in. And so those first party agents, they're given to you as part of the license for M365 Copilot. And so you should familiarize yourself with any of them that would that would intersect with your role and the things you do throughout the day. And then we migrate into this low code, no code, pro code world, where everything else can be done with an agent. And so you can see that you can limit the scope of grounding and knowledge. You can add specific instructions to agents. You can automate business processes. And that really starts getting us into this realm that is a destination for many organizations that we call the frontier firm. Okay. And the frontier firm, I will tell you, it's not defined. The end state, there is no destination. It's this mindset that organizations that are kind of bleeding edge of figuring out how to leverage AI to move forward are conquering and being much more competitive in the marketplace. And so this is kind of where those organizations are headed, and you want to become one of these frontier employees. Okay. And so a frontier employee, to kind of make it make sense, imagine that you've gone through, you're conquering all of step one and step two, you're getting use cases for your role. You're being extremely productive and efficient and using Copilot out of the box. You've got some agents that you've created that are doing some very specific things for maybe you and your team. And now you get into this realm where you're the boss of all of these agents that you put to work every day to do some of the things that you don't want to do every day, to do some of the things that are going to save a ton of time and effort in your organization. And so this is the end state. Again, this is where you'll also find all the future innovation that comes out that you'll want to accomplish this frontier, be a frontier employee, so you can then participate in what we call the frontier firm. And so this frontier firm may be something new to all of you, right? And so the only thing I want to encourage you to think about is Microsoft puts a gazillion dollars, don't quote me on that, but we invest a ton of resource, time, and effort into making sure we know where the hockey puck is headed, right? From a trending perspective. And that's why we invest heavily in this work trend index. And so as a result of our most recent work trend index, we came out with, hey, the most bleeding edge organizations have brought us to this point where we realize and we label them as frontier firms. And so a frontier firm, we got all this data. We surveyed 31,000 people across 31 countries, right? And so we're able to go and really hone in on what does that mean? Where is technology and specifically AI at work headed? And so that's where we get to this idea of a frontier firm. And what we've done is we've realized that those organizations that have followed that 1, 2, 3, 4, they're trying to make all of their employees frontier employees, which all of you should strive to do. When you go back and you survey them, the ones that are approaching that frontier firm status, 71% of their workers say we're thriving, whereas only 37% of those workers say, hey, we're thriving, right? So there's a big difference, right, between those two organizations. And many, again, they're just heading in the frontier firm direction, right? They're going through these steps. They haven't reached utopia yet, as I like to call it. And so all that being said, when you think about the frontier firm, there's 3 phases, right? So I told you there was 4 steps, but the reality is in all of our learning, and when we talk to all these organizations, we realize that those steps really follow almost identical to what we showed you at the very beginning of this. Conquer your personal productivity first. Understand how you can use the out-of-the-box capabilities. And today we're going to focus on legal and HR to really hone in on specific use cases. Then after that, you'll realize there's some limits that maybe you want to tap into agents to help you with, right? And then you'll probably get into some no-code agents that you'll create. You might have somebody who's writing low-code or pro-code agents. And ultimately, you're going to find yourself set up for success as being a frontier employee because your firm is counting on you to do that because they want to become this frontier firm. So All that being said, please hone in on steps 1 and 2. If you need help, then please engage us or somebody like Netrix to have you focus on steps 1 and 2 if you feel like there's a deficit there. And now I'm extremely excited to hand this over to Michael, who is going to walk you through and show you how some of this comes together. So, Michael, over to you, sir.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to piggyback off a couple things that you said. And again, this is stuff I see, right? I meet with customers every single day on this stuff, and that's one of those things that I can't echo enough. Is we have lots of folks that will come here and say, "I want this agent built," and then I always kind of caution them, like, "Let's take a couple steps back. Do you have use cases? Do you have what I like to say is your organization AI literate? Like, is everybody using AI?" And generally, the answer I get is no. And I caution them that for a few reasons. One is just like Brett said, you can over engineer something, right? That's step one. Step two, you can also you're building it in a way that you think of the old way of doing things. Once you get AI and everybody's AI literate, you look at how you do your day to day, whether it's responding to an email, creating a document, it really doesn't matter. Everything that you do will completely change how you do it once you get AI literate. So then you'll look at what you did on that, on that particular agent and say, you know what? I never would have built it this way knowing what I know now. So that's also the issue with that. And then, but what I say with the personal productivity piece is don't sleep on the small stuff. And this is the example I always give is let's just take, and I would argue it's more than 5 minutes, but for math, let's just say it's 5 minutes. Let's say that I just summarizing meetings saves me 5 minutes. And let's say that I have 20 of those a week, right? Me as the individual over the course of a year, that's going to be like 17.3 hours. Again, we're not saying this is mind numbing stuff, but this is one thing 5 minutes. There's going to be dozens of those. And I would argue they're more than 5 minutes. But now let's take that same math of just me with the one 5 minute thing. And now let's traverse that over an organization of, say, 100 people. That's 1,700 hours on one 5 minute savings. And like I said, I argue there are way more than that. So that's why personal productivity is just as important as, again, going down the agent path and all that, because there's so much to gain there. Plus, you as an individual completely change how you work day to day on everything. And again, that will trickle into agent building and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of echo that again. Uh, yeah, those are things I see in the field.
Well
Let's
said, Michael. Well said. All right, you share your screen now, and
Yeah, let me get this guy shared out. Let me just get my window going here. There we go. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to start small and we're going to just keep building. We are going to get into co-work today. I'm going to show you some outputs. Again, the whole idea is I just want to expose you to things. Maybe have a different way of thinking or doing things. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to get into uh, an Excel spreadsheet, and we're just going to tell it to make some charts for us, which I'm sure a lot of folks do. But with cowork, I have a different way of doing it. This again, no one has to do anything that Mike does. This is what I do with a lot of things with cowork. I like to make HTML dashboards because I can always go back to them. Again, we're going to show you what all that looks like instead of doing it in there, just giving you options. One thing I will say is that the key to everything in whether you're doing an agent, whether you're doing anything in Copilot here is the prompting. So don't forget that. That is the new skill. Make sure your prompts are good. You have, what your persona might be. And again, I'm not saying you have to have these all the time, but you have to kind of get out of the mindset of keywords, right? Like I think we've all been kind of taught ourselves over the past few years because everything was internet search driven to just find those couple keywords. Now we're looking for more meat to that, more sentence, things like that, if you will, right? So let's get into it. So first, what we're going to start with is again, mine might look slightly different than yours. Again, I have this is part of the Frontier program, so I have co-work and all these other things turned on. So don't be alarmed if yours isn't quite looking just like mine. That's okay. But first, what we're going to do is kick open this Copilot on the side here. Okay, and a couple things I just want to kind of walk you through real quick is on the right here, you're going to notice a couple things. Again, if yours might look slightly different, so don't feel alarmed. But what we have here is we have allow editing, and then if I have this allow chat only. And again, I'm gonna kind of toggle these today because you're going to see me doing it. And really what this means is if I have it selected on edit, anything I do in there, it's going to actually do to the document, like build it out. But when I do the chat only, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just in chat. So it isn't committing anything to the document. So there's absolutely a use case here. I use it quite a bit where I have a document, but maybe I'm doing some research on how I want to do something or add that to it. So it's a great way to just toggle that to chat, ask your questions there, get some information, and you can always copy that content into the document so you don't lose anything there from that. But let's get started here. So first, what we're going to start here is, like I said, some low hanging fruit, a job description. And again, I don't make job descriptions, but I can only imagine they probably take some time, right? That you want to sit there and what it is, different language that you perhaps want in there, or different kind of terms or whatnot, and probably going out to job sites, right? Like Dice or Indeed or one of those, and seeing what does this kind of job have, and are these the things I should, have in there? So this is again from stories from the real world, right? Of with customers. What I'm about to show you, actual customer, many customers said that this is about a 4 to 5 hour ish task before Copilot, because they would have to go do all these research of these different jobs that perhaps they just didn't know, or they're trying to fill a new role, and they're kind of copying and pasting a bunch of stuff into a Word document, and then just by kind of elimination of, yeah, these all had the same thing, so that must be good, and going through that. But this is the new, this is the day of the new. Let's let Copilot do all this fun stuff for us. All right. So, what is my prompt? Draft a job description for a senior HR business partner who will manage remote workforce programs, use inclusive language, avoid gender terms, include EEO statement at the bottom, structure it with, right? So now I'm kind of giving it how I want it to be. Again, I'm not just going to go in here and say, create a job description for senior HR business partner. It will do a good job, but it probably won't be what I want. I have to tell it what I want. Again, Copilot is my assistant. So in here, I'm kind of giving it the structure I want, right? An overview, key responsibilities, required qualifications, preferred qualifications, and then compensation and benefits. So let's go. This will take a second. There we go. It's starting to build it out. Let's take a peek as it's building. All right. So we are done. That was pretty quick. Let me just kind of verify this, that it's got everything here. It's got the EEO statement I asked for. Check. We got compensation and benefits. Check. Preferred qualifications. Check. Required qualifications. Check. Key responsibilities. And then my overview. So, okay, great. It's got everything that I need. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit done, and I'm going to call this done. Again, Copilot gave me all of this kind of what it did, right? And then it gives me some suggestions here, right? Of maybe some different things I want to, right? Add a salary range, right? If there's a particular job rec that we had around that, maybe shorten the posting, right? Because again, it's giving you suggestions like LinkedIn or Indeed. Again, these are all things we can go back in and do over top of this if we so choose to. And again, you're kind of at your own destiny with this, right? Of what this might be, of to look at this and say that piece of it. So let's go ahead and let's do something like that. Let's go ahead and say make this shorter for LinkedIn. So I'm just taking that first paragraph there, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to change this. Let's try this again. No. Try one more time, and if not, we'll chalk it up to the demo. Right? This is how the demos go sometimes. Anyways, but what it would have done there, right, is just selected that one paragraph. It's not going to go and rewrite the entire thing for me because maybe I just want this initial paragraph, the overview, to be slightly different than what it should be. So I can absolutely do that in there, right? So again, you can kind of pick and choose where you want. It can build the document out for you, and then you are good to go from there. So very cool. Let's start with something new. Let's do something else. Okay. So we got our document in there. We're going to start another new one. Let's do something a little bit more complex. All right, same rules apply. We're going to open this guy up. All right, same rules. We got the editing and all that fun stuff. But this time, what I want to do is I want to create an NDA, right? Within here. So I'm going to give it big gnarly prompt. Again, not saying every prompt in the world has to be big and gnarly, but the more things that I supply it, the more details I give it, the less either questions it will have back for me or the less work I have to do. Again, what I like to always say is depending on the tasks I'm trying to do, depend on how long it takes me to write the prompt. So I have had it where it's doing multiple things at once, right? Whether it's doing some research, creating a Word document, taking that Word document, doing something with it, also creating a PDF, and right, a whole lot of stuff going on. I have taken upwards to 30 to 40 minutes to write out a really large prompt because there are so many things I needed to do, so many details in a very specific way. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying that everything you do, you should be spending 40 minutes on a prompt. Not at all. As you saw with the job description, just getting a nice kind of what you're looking for and a structure to it and let it go is sometimes good enough. But this is a legal binding document, so I have a lot of things to say about that. So I'm going to paste this guy in here. Cool. So let's kind of look at what my prompt is. So I'm on a professionally, legally structured NDA, right? So I got my fictitious company, Acme Oil. So we're going to go through that. Right now, I'm giving kind of different sections, right? So I want parties section, definition of confidential information, right? And I'm giving it some things I want it to kind of go over, right? Like cover trade secrets, drilling data, right? All these types of things that are very pertinent to this obligations, right? We get all this fun stuff. So I'm putting a certain set of structure in there, but I'm not writing all this stuff out, right? I'm just giving it kind of a nudge, like this is what I want in this section from a high level. Copilot, you go and figure out all the things that need to go into this, right? That's kind of more or less what I'm saying here. So we get here. So I think it's 12 items I have in here. Yeah. Signature block at the bottom. Cool. Let's let this go. Let's see what it does. Now it's thinking about it. Check it out as it's building. Almost there. I had my 12 items. Cool. All right. I got all of my stuff in here. But let's let Copilot go ahead and fill this out for me. So I'm going to hit done. Now I want to show you a couple things. One where I have data. Now again, we can connect to anything, right? Right. Just like Brent was saying, is we can tap into other things, right? We can SharePoint sites, OneDrive, our emails, right? Loop pages, all sorts of things. Or again, you can be external, right? Maybe you're connected to a Dynamics or a Salesforce or ServiceNow, right? All these things are reality, right? So I don't have anything externally shared on here, so I'm kind of like simulating it. But what I have here is a loop page with some data, and then I also have a SharePoint list with some data. So let's just take a peek real quick at that. So here we are, just a simple customer, right? You could essentially have like a customer list or a database, or again, something in Salesforce or Dynamics. But again, so I got some info in here with some dates. Okay, very cool. Let's go back here. Now I open up Loop here. Let me go in here. So I have this, perhaps I have a customer, right? Information in here on in a loop page. Again, maybe I have a structured loops where I have different customers and stuff. So I have all that information in here per se. So let's go ahead and kind of instruct Copilot here to go look at those things and fill out this NDA essentially. So now we're going to Fill in the disclosing party for Red Crow, right? This is my fictitious company with information from Loop. So I'm telling it where to go find it. And then receiving party info from Acme Oil from lists. So two Microsoft products. Let's have it do its thing. Yes. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's re-highlighting everything that it wrote. So it's looking for those pieces that it needs to overwrite to make sure it's going to go into that piece. Yes. So again, there we go. We have it has added that part in right there automatically. That's what you get for getting me to type stuff, all sorts of grammatical errors and whatnot. Just gonna do that. Add that in. So I got that one and the Acme Oil. Okay, didn't for whatever reason it didn't pull my receiving party address in on there. There we go. That's it. So it did find it. There we go. There we go. There we go. Now it's pulling it all in. Perfect. So a couple extra steps that had to take. Awesome. So again, you can see how powerful this is, right? To be able to not only generate that, but also put that in. But again, another great thing is I could also store this in SharePoint, right? And then I can use this as a reusable template, meaning we go through once and kind of make that NDA again if it's something that we just reuse all the time. And then again, if I'm in legal or whatnot, all I have to do is basically invoke that template and say, this is the customer information that I want in this. And it's going to go ahead and stuff it in those respective places on here. So again, you can see how powerful that is so that it's kind of one of those I wrote it once and I could just have it redo it over and over again versus copy and pasting things into other. Not that that doesn't take, that doesn't take a ton of time, but the idea behind that is that, I'm gonna have to do that all the time. This is something that could just be over and over. Cool. All right, so let's get into let's kind of ratchet it up a little bit, right? Kind of do a little bit more in here. So one, I want to show you this data first before we start doing it, and we're going to come back to the spreadsheet in a second and do more. So again, all this is exit interviews, right? And there's like a couple hundred of them, I think. Yeah, 231. Okay, and then again, we got some, text fields. Again, essentially think this is a Microsoft form, perhaps that was, created for the initial front end of this that, someone from HR was filling out. Cool, cool. All right. So now let's go in here. Kind of let's go with the scenario that I'm later today or tomorrow I have to kind of present on, this exit survey data, right, to my boss. And I was, let's say I just kind of started this out, right, kind of just this executive summary, and I got some of the survey results in here, some of the detail, just a couple of that, but maybe I want a little bit more info in this, right? And let's kind of use that sheet as, you know, it's 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 knowledge, right? To pull that in. Now again, I could manually copy and paste some of that. Make this longer. Let's see if this works for us here. Cool. All right. I like it. We're going to keep that. Again, for everything today, I'm going to kind of accept everything that's coming in here. However, I recommend that you definitely, make sure you're reading it. Again, anything, might make a mistake or something like that. So it's super important to double check these things. But again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to review these and just assume everything is a-okay. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to actually take that spreadsheet that we all saw, and I want to do a little sentiment analysis around that and pull some of that data in here. Now, again, I could go through it myself and perhaps grab some, but I'm just going to let Copilot do all this stuff for me. All right, so I'm going to do this. And there it is. My exit survey shows right at the top. So basically what I'm saying is look at this file, and I want you to, analyze this data and document and identify the top 10 themes of driving voluntary, attrition. For each theme, give me a one sentence summary on the percentage respondents who cited it, and one verbatim quote of best represents the theme. Again, present this as a numbered list in a new section called primary attrition reasons. So let's have that happen. Let's let it do its thing. Okay, here we are. And there we go. And I have my top 5 themes, right? I'm gonna go ahead and say that's done and keep it, just take a peek at that. So again, I asked for top 5 themes, right? Looking for a one sentence summary of kind of what it was, right? Verbatim quote on that. And then there we go. And then have those kind of ranked by frequency. Awesome. Okay, but I'm not done just yet. I want to add another section to this of some more data. Okay, very cool. I'll accept that. So again, I will assume this is good. Again, I would definitely go and verify that this information is accurate from that. But again, looking at it, there was 230 people, I believe that was in that. Yeah, it was 230. Right. So it's already starting to look good to me. But again, just look at that I'm able to, again, I have maybe some skeletoned out kind of Word document. There are different sections perhaps I want, but there's some kind of number crunching or some sentiment analysis that I need to happen. Again, I could manually go through and look at all 200 of those and kind of make a judgment. Or again, I could just pull that in, basically kind of attach that file as you see there, and just let Copilot kind of figure that stuff out with giving it the direction I want it to go. And again, like I said, asking for 5 bullet points or how I want it. But being able to pull that stuff in again with multiple documents, right, to kind of create my said document here is powerful, right, within here. So again, we're going to come back to that spreadsheet because we're going to make some charts and stuff like that for us. But yeah, so this is cool. But now, what if I got to do some other stuff to it? So let's take this, and now I have to go ahead and do a presentation. No problem. So I'm going to go in here. We're going to do a fresh presentation. Okay, let it fire up there. Where's my, there we go. Okay, cool. Let's create this. Create a presentation. So far, so good. This file. And there's my exit survey in here. Um, there you go. Let's go ahead and just do that. So I'm giving a very limited scope, right? I'm just saying create a presentation based off of this, again, Word doc, if you will, that I've just created. Again, I had some skeleton things in. I pulled some stuff from my Excel spreadsheet, but let's see what it does for us. Let that think, let that build. It's going to come back and ask me some questions. Again, another question I always get is, okay, here we go. So again, if you haven't seen this, this is some of the newer features that are in PowerPoint now. Is where it's going to kind of give you some audience questions, length questions on that within here. So let's say that this is for senior leadership, and we want more executive summary, right? So 5 to 7 slides, and then we want the key quotes. And while I don't have like a corporate template in this environment, you absolutely can use yours. So don't think like it's just going to create one and you have to like copy that stuff over to your corporate. You can absolutely use your corporate templates to begin building from that so that it just goes right into yours, right with that on a one shot. Okay. So again, as you see here, what visual, so my organization, I don't have any templates in here, so there's nothing in there. So I'm just going to go with, let's go with clean, white, navy, and confirm, and let it do its thing on that. Sometimes it will ask you about imagery. But this is, again, I'll give a real world story. This might take a couple minutes to build. So I'll just talk really quickly about this, but this is a real world scenario that happened to me. Again, I give lots of webinars and trainings and sessions like that all the time. So I have lots of different PowerPoint decks that I create for different things. And I did one like, I don't know, it was like a year or two ago for the Power Platform. And I had a customer reach out and said, hey, could you do like a couple hundred user training around the Power Platform next week, Tuesday? I'm like, yeah, like I literally have like the deck ready to go. Let's do it. So Monday night at like 9 o'clock at night, I decided I should probably just verify that slide deck real quick, right? Make sure it's all good and nothing's changed. I couldn't find it anywhere. And we're talking 9 o'clock at night. I have this session at 8 a.m. Um, no problem. Copilot to the rescue. So I went in and gave, started with a blank one and said, hey, I need a slide presentation on the Power Platform. I need a slide for Power Apps. I need a slide for Dataverse. I need a slide for licensing and yada, 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 right? Um, Go. So it did. It went and built it, and then I just moved some things around of how I wanted to present them, in a certain order, and I tweaked a couple bullet points of how I wanted to talk about it. And I was in and out in probably about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Now, had I not had Copilot and I would have had, and it was like 22 slides, all with images, all that fun stuff. If I would have just, again, created 22 slides from scratch, went out and found images, um, and then again, putting all the bullet points and stuff I wanted, it would not have taken me 10, 15 minutes, right? It would have probably taken me 4 to 5 hours reality, right, of that at 9 o'clock at night. So again, this is helped me so many times with this, right? Of doing this type of thing, of getting that out and getting these slides the way that you want them to. So, and again, I pretty much exclusively use not just this. Again, I use all sorts of pieces of Copilot, but I would say the thing that I use every single solitary day is this, right, in PowerPoint. Whether I'm creating a new customer deck for something, right, that's relative to that customer, right. So there can be things I can do in here that I have done, right, to where hey, I need a slide deck that talks about Copilot, but I also want you to relate it to this customer, and this is the industry, and here's the customer. And it does a little research, and it basically makes these, instead of what I would consider like a very generic PowerPoint presentation that anybody could look at, to it's very customer focused, very personal to that customer of what we're helping them with. And again, it's looking at my notes and things like that from perhaps a call we have had across again the whole N365 stack. So super helpful for me within here. I swear by this for sure, and other things too. So another thing, again, I'll just keep talking while this is building, um, is, like it was said earlier, like being able to kind of traverse other things. So again, I do a lot of traveling for, different AI. Like I just got back from Atlanta for the Microsoft AI tour. Before that, I was in Chicago. So it's like I do a lot of training and a lot of speaking and a lot of traveling. And there are times I'm out of the office for a day or two, and I'm definitely like looking at emails, but I'm not like in the email and understand. The same thing with Teams messages, right? I see like the little icon come up of how many messages. So I click on it, I'm like reading it, but I might not answer it right then and I might forget. So I have kind of this prompt that I have that basically when I come back and I say, can you tell me for the last day, or if it's 2 days, look across my email for the past 2 days. And again, prompting, and this is where it's relevant. If I just say, look at my email, I might go back for a month, right? So I have to be very specific of what I'm saying. Same thing like if you're looking up a customer, right? If I say, give me information on customer X, and we've done business with them for years, it's going to go back years. But I might say, tell me information on customer X from the past 2 months, as example. So prompting is important. But I have this thing, look across my email. I have it look across my team's the channel messages, one-on-one chats, all that fun stuff. I have it make a table. I love tables, so I always have everything make a table. It has different priority levels to it that I put in this prompt, and this is one of those prompts I basically have it run every day that I come back from when I'm there, and it gives me this nice kind of dashboard, if you will, of these are all the things I need to do. And like I said, we're gonna get to the co-work dashboard. Again, that's just how I work. I love everything to be in a dashboard. So I'll show you again a couple different ways you can do it. We're gonna definitely do it in Excel next. Around here we go. It's building. It looks like coming here. Um, we're gonna allow it to do some different things in there, right? Kind of a summary dashboard within uh, Excel on its own, but then we're going to kick that same thing over a little later to Cowork and have it do its thing. And I'll show you what that looks like. And again, they're both producing the same essentially sort of information, right? Especially if I were to take the same prompt across there with that, but it's just a different way of doing it, right? In my opinion, kind of getting out of the world of Excel, if you whether you want to or not be in that. So let that still build here. Should be coming any second. It usually just kind of pops right there and it's done with that information. There you go. So it's doing some of the, so you can kind of see it, right? As it's kind of going through these different pieces of what that means within here, what sections it's working on. Yeah, I couldn't do what I do on a daily basis without Copilot. No question. It has made me a force multiplier. Things that would normally take 4 or 5 hours, like I said, like presentations, which I do tons of. And again, they're generally not rinse and repeat ones. They're generally very unique to customers. So those would take, again, 4 to 5 hours every time I would have to make one. And again, I meet several times a day for that, so you can imagine the time that would go into that. To now it's more 10 minutes, right, of that. And sometimes it's even less than that. It could be 5 if it's you know, a similar topic, but more specific to a customer, same kind of use cases or same kind of project we're looking at. Within that, I could even use like another previous document as kind of the source to that to be able to pull that back in there, right? As kind of like, look at all the stuff I've done in the past on this, do that same thing here, but make it relevant to this customer. So it kind of takes some of the guesswork out of that within here. So we'll let that keep building. Talk about prompting real quick while this is building. Prompting is super important. Like I said, it's the new language. One of the things I see a lot of customers make a mistake with when they first get Copilot is They use it like they're doing internet searches, so they're putting in a few keywords and they're just not understanding why Copilot isn't working for them because it's just kind of regurgitating internet kind of traffic or results. And again, it's getting in there, getting a persona, getting kind of the task you wanted to do, the format you wanted to output, even the audience. And kind of the example I always give is if you have, all right, we're almost there. There we go. Cool. I'll give that story in a second because I'm sure we'll wait again. All right, so let's take a peek at this real quick. Um, Kind of close this guy off. Make that. Yep, there you go. So okay, we got a cool little cityscape back there. It looks like an oil refinery. Very neat. Again, this number we know is right. Again, I would verify all of these things are accurate in here. But again, as you can see, it is pulling in a very, you know, uh, kind of top down, if you will, of that. Again, it's extracting things from that document. Again, another way to present this information, right? That if I started from that, and again, you can work any way you'd like. You didn't even have to go to the Word document. You probably could have done this exact same thing just by taking that spreadsheet and then plugging it into PowerPoint here, and then giving it kind of a real long laundry list of things that you wanted to cover. No right or wrong answer here of how you want to do it. And again, that's really what I want to show today is there's a lot of different ways to do it. Like I said, we're going to get into some charting in Excel, but we're also going to do it in Cowork and make some dashboards. So no one way to do this. But again, very cool. Again, this one took a little bit longer. Um, I would argue that it's taking a little longer as of recently with these kind of the cloud updates, but I've noticed that these are, in my opinion, this is my opinion only, 100 times more accurate and what I would say more refined than they were in the past. So I will take a little extra time. And again, I didn't have to sit here and watch it. I could have gone on and done something else, checked emails, gone and got a coffee, whatever. You don't have to sit here and watch this stuff. But just know that this is pretty powerful stuff that we can do in here. All right, let's get out of here. Cool. All right. So now let's, like I said, I keep talking about this spreadsheet. So let's open this guy up. Cool. All right. So same spreadsheet we saw earlier, right, with all these different things. But let's ask Copilot for some stuff, right? Cool. All right. So let's just have it again. We already kind of did this, right? We kind of asked for sentiment analysis around this. So like I said, we're gonna flip between that. So let's just do chat. So I don't want to actually do anything to the document just yet. We will. But let's just get, what's the top 5 sentiment analysis of the surveys, right? So let's just as broad as that, let's have it kind of skim this 230 user um spreadsheet and kind of give me some heads or tails of what's going on here. And again, you might see some code get executed here. Don't get alarmed if you do see that. That is just Copilot working. Okay, here we go. Very cool. So it's given me, right, kind of the top 5 best to worst, right, of what they said in here. And again, I have the options to, I could just flat out copy this out, or I can again add to a new sheet if I so choose to. Very cool. So again, you can do some looking at it, like just giving it some minimal stuff, like, hey, tell me what's going on here. Another great one that I've done before is if I have like I have this one that's got like 1,000 records in it. It's like a fictitious like sales, it's got delivery and gross margin and all this fun stuff in there. And all I could do is just say, tell me any anomalies in this. And it will go through and figure out. And again, this is, it's for demo. So I know the data that's wrong. And it pulls them out and it says, these 5 things are kind of out of whack. So again, super powerful stuff you can do within here. So now let's just let it make us a dashboard. I'm actually not going to give it too much direction. So let's flip this back because I actually want it to create one. Okay. So now I want you to create a new sheet that has a summary dashboard. And it's going to come back and it's probably going to ask me like some different directions. I'm just going to let it do it. I want to see what it's going to do for me with minimal instructions. I'll let that go. It's going to think for a second. Like I said, it's probably going to come back, ask, there we go. It's going to ask some more clarifying questions, right? So I could get in here and say exactly what I wanted to do, but I'm just going to say, basically, you decide what should be in the dashboard. So I'm just going to leave it as open-ended as that. And let's let Copilot think on its own and make some decisions for me. Again, I should probably, if I'm looking for a dashboard, I'm going to tell what I want. But again, I just want to show the power of the creativity of Copilot, how I can go in here and create some really cool things in here. Let that go. So while this is thinking, I was starting to say that before why prompting is important and giving it. Well, there it goes. It's going, or it's gonna take a couple steps here, but I'll go that. Kind of the
I like to
example I
remind
always
people,
give.
Michael. I like to
What's that?
remind people that
Yeah.
hey, this is like we all have this instant gratification desire, right? Hey, we click things. We're in this world where people expect immediate results, and so it kind of diminishes if you think about what Excel is doing and connecting all the dots on what he said with his natural language, right? Um, and converting that into all the features and all the capabilities that Excel is capable of, and whatever formulas it has to create. It's pretty amazing. So even though this might take 3 minutes, right? It's kind of awkward as we're sitting here letting it generate. It's probably going to save at least an hour, 3 hours, right? It depends on what you throw at it. So the juice is always worth the squeeze. So demoing this stuff live, I just remind people like, hey, 3 minutes, go start another prompt somewhere else if you'd like to start, working on some other idea that you need to finish today while this is running, and come back and it will finish. As long as you see those dots next to step 2 flashing. It's not like the old days where you'd say like, oh my gosh, something's frozen, it's not working. It's always working. It'll tell you if it has a problem. So just if it's doing this and you're like, oh, let me go do something else that I can, go check it on an email or send a chat to your colleague or whatever, come back and you'll be blown away with the results. That's all I was going to say is don't get discouraged, because some of these really rich tasks that we're putting Copilot within Excel to go do, they are super valuable, right? And you could never race and beat what it's going to provide. But sometimes as you're demoing this stuff, it takes a few minutes for it to generate. And so in the real world, people are ecstatic about, hey, I did this in 3 to 5 minutes and it would have taken me 2 hours to do. So just a friendly reminder to everybody.
Yeah, great point. And to that point, again, no one has to work the way Mike works, but that's almost how I do stuff is I prompt and I walk away, right? That's just how I do it, right? Or like I said, I go to a different task. I will get a prompt going and then I go check email and I go respond to that thing in Teams or whatever. And then I come back to it. Usually, I mean, it's usually done, right? But I don't remember it until, a little bit later. So, okay, here we go. So very cool. So we got let's kind of close this guy real quick. Cool. So we have our dashboard, right? That's showing all this stuff. I mean, again, I think this is pretty cool. I mean, I would argue that if you had to kind of do a bunch of formulas to make this happen by hand, this would have taken a whole lot longer than what it just took Copilot to do that. So again, super powerful. I didn't have to know formulas. I didn't have to know really anything of this, right? I just kind of gave it leeway and said, do your thing. Again, if there was something very specific I was trying to look for, I would have absolutely done that. Within here, probably a better prompt than that, but I just let kind of Copilot loose, if you will, and let it go ahead and do its thing. And this is what it did. And then, again, in my opinion, this is a pretty good one, right? From that. So cool. Let's dip out of here and get into the next one. Okay, so now let's look at rewriting some things within here. So let's go here. All right. So we got, let me make that a little bit bigger. Okay. So we got our remote work policy, and we can see that legal has created this first, and we got lots of legalese in here. right? And maybe we're like, you know what? The user base is not really going to understand this or get this. Let's kind of soften up the language. So again, we got, 5 pages right here within here. So, okay, let's go ahead and let's open our little Copilot window. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this entire policy. So I'll put in my prompt. All right. Rewrite this entire policy document in plain language, suitable for general employee audience. Use short sentences, active voice, and friendly but professional tone. Keep all of the key rules intact, but remove the legal jargon. So again, I want it's very important that I don't want to take what legal has done, right, and kind of diminish that because those are important things that legal went through to get this to understand these policies. I don't want to do that. I just want them worded slightly different that the average user will understand, right? So let's go ahead and do this. Let's let it do its thing. Um, go so a little quicker. Word goes quicker. I would say, PowerPoint takes a little bit longer because it's kind of doing a bunch of stuff. Um, and then Excel, I would say, is fairly quick, depending on what you're doing. Again, I just kind of randomly had it go do um, a chart on its own. While that is thinking, back to the prompting real quick. I feel like I've tried to get the story out like 3 times, but it ends right there. Is it, having all of those good prompts in there. If I just go into like Copilot and PowerPoint and say, create me a presentation on quantum physics, that's going to get pretty deep and probably won't understand anything. But if I prompt that, and again, perhaps I'm a third grade teacher, right? That's teaching, not that you would teach a third grade class quantum physics, but work with me on this. Um, that would make one presentation that probably no one would even understand. But then I could just go in and prompt it slightly differently and say, give it who I am. I am a third grade science teacher. I am trying to teach my class about quantum physics, do it in a non-technical way in the style of Pokemon that they would understand, yada yada yada, right? That type of thing. Those will be two separate things that it actually produces. What happened? Not sure what just happened there. I don't think it rewrote it. Now it looks about the same. Let me try that again. Apologize, apologize. It looks like it did the header. Let me just close this and reopen this. Hold on, please. I apologize, everybody, but it wouldn't be a demo if something like this didn't happen. Am I right? There we go. All right, let's try this again. So again, that's going to be two separate, totally polar opposite presentations it's going to make just by tweaking the language in that prompt a little bit. There we go. There we go. Now it's starting to work. Now it's starting to, you can see the little lines going over it. Okay, we'll let that think and do its thing. Um,
The point I make here a lot, Michael, is
yep.
there's also times where you're the recipient of a document. The easiest way is, I know there's some folks from the legal department probably watching, but think of any type of medical readout or medical verbiage. Like you're the recipient of a document. You're like, hey, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a physician. Like, what does this mean, right? You can, like what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, we're targeting an audience that we're going to send this to. And Michael's saying, hey, rewrite it so those people can understand it. But let's just say nobody did that and they sent it. You can then, as the recipient, go in and use Copilot and say, hey, rewrite this as a fifth grader. And it would do that magically. And you could say, oh, now I understand. It gets rid of all the legalese and tells you in plain, fifth grade kind of narrative what it's saying. And so that's just another thing that I found. There's like 50-50. People get really excited about being able to do that with things that they received so that they can understand it better. And then the other half of the world is like, hey, I want to do due diligence and making sure the people I send this to are understanding, because I might be an expert in an area and they're not. And so just wanted to fill in the gaps there.
Yeah, good point. Again, just looking at this, I could just tell you that I would say it's more soft on language, right? You must have worked company for at least 90. Like, to me, it's more out of the legal world, right? On within that. So again, this is something I would absolutely, look at and be like, yeah, this is good and this is probably consumable. Again, I would want to make sure that that is lining up with customer or with user legal expectations, that this is still that. But again, they should be able to look at that and review it, or even do a compare and contrast with that. So cool. Now let's take this a different way. So now I'm still gonna, again, I just did my new document, but now I'm gonna, whoops, hold on. There we go. Where are my Copilot piece at? Where are you at? Oh, let's miss it. There we go. So I want to create an FAQ from this. I'll show you where I'm going with this. So all I did was in the library. Again, this could have been in my OneDrive, SharePoint library, doesn't really matter. And I just selected it and said, basically make an FAQ out of this with a single button push. I could have prompted it to do that, right? So again, a lot of different ways that this task could have been completed.
Yeah, and again, it reminds me there's so many things that Copilot offers that, because we've all been in the workforce for a long time, we don't go trying to discover. We don't know what we don't know. So I love watching you go through this, Michael, because there's things that I'm like, oh yeah, I've shown that to a couple people, but there's so many different elements that I love watching you go through your rendition of a demo, because we all have kind of our own favorite, crowd pleasers. And so this is one that a lot of people take for granted. Like, when is the last time any of you watching Michael went and looked at that right click menu and said, hey, oh, wow, I can go and create an FAQ, right? It's just amazing how we've integrated seamlessly Copilot into all of these things that we've been using for a while. We just haven't slowed down enough to say, oh my gosh, look at the value now Copilot brings, if I just, start thinking and changing habits of where can I use AI to do this for me? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
good point.
good point. Yeah, when it's done, it'll be like, okay, imagine each of us watching how long it would have taken for us to go and create
Sure.
an FAQ.
And the beautiful thing is I don't have to open the document, right? I just select it, especially if I already know what that is. If I'm in HR, if I'm in legal, I know this document because I've already created it. All I have to do is click it, and then again, a modal window pops up. I don't have to go open the document in Word or anything like that. It's all done right here, right? Without
Yep.
opening it. So I love that piece of it. While that is thinking, I see there's a question in the chat. And okay, so kind of the issue is that there's different confidential areas right within here. Um, so yes, so how would you kind of go about having kind of the idea is that a red, yellow, green area where red is open, no protection, and then whatnot. So this is going to be tackled with a few things. So there is purview. Purview will allow you to label certain sites or content with a label to where you could say, I don't want Copilot to look at this or use it or whatever, and it will ignore it, that type of data. Also, a combination of there's also a tool that, again, if you have one Copilot license, you have access to it. It's called, oh, let's try it again. Um, I thought that took long. So usually just like that. Um, and the other is called SharePoint Advanced Management, and that's where you could put certain rule sets on certain sites so that that can't be shared by accident, right? So you have kind of a two kind of levers between that to where you can either have purview hide certain data, or again have different levels of access that users can have within those different sites on there. And then if you're going down the agent route, um, Agent 365, which was just released Friday, um, does kind of what you're looking for, to where not only are you able to audit any agents, but the connections those things are talking to, right? So if you have a rule or policy to say like this type of data can't ever be used, you'll see that reporting. It can restrict that from those agents, so that you can allow your users to go ahead and create agents without, in a safe manner within there, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question. I am gonna stop this real quick and refresh this, because this shouldn't take this long. I don't know if it's just because I'm sitting on this page for so long. Let's just try that one more time. Let's do this guy, create an FAQ. I have no idea why it's pulling that up. There we go. Okay, this is typically how it is. No idea what just happened. It was starting to give it to me, and then it just stopped for a second. There we go again. Cool. All right. So I have, again, a little softer, right? Instead of going into it. Again, this might be something that you post up on like a SharePoint site or something like that around that, right? That you might want to put this information in. Or let's ask it one more question. Okay. Can you give me a Q&A of 6 items from this list and list them out? I'll show you where I'm going with this. There we go. I want to tweak this one more step further, and I'll show you why I'm doing this. Cool. This is great, but can you make the answers one short sentence each? I knew I was going to spell that wrong. I blame Microsoft for that because I use spell check. So cool. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this guy, copy this. I'm going to bring this over here to my prompt real quick, and I'm going to paste it here, and then cool. Now we're going to go here real quick, and now I'm going to go to create. And I'm going to go, let's say, design an infograph, and we'll make it a wide portrait. No, let's make it a tall guy. Um, branding color. So again, I can use a branding kit, which I have in here. I'm not going to use that one. Let's just grab like this guy, and I'm going to grab my prompt of what I just got from that and basically say, make a Q&A out of this infograph. We'll see what it does for us. Hopefully I didn't overload it with too much information, but let's see what it does for us. These are pretty cool. I like doing these a lot. Anytime I have like a lot of complicated or what I think is complicated stuff in there, I always try and summarize it and make an infograph out of that. Sometimes I'll put that infograph in a PowerPoint. Because again, sometimes again, I just think that for me, I'm a visual person, so if I can see it, I'm probably more apt to understand what's going on versus a lot of text. And I think a lot of people are that way too. So again, you could put that in a PowerPoint. So there's times I look at a slide and it's like, oh man, that's got a lot of text and it's like talking about a lot of stuff. So I'll just take that and I'll make an infograph and slap that back in there. Or again, you can make an image like this and put it on your intranet right around there. So let's see what we get here.
Yeah, just a fun fact, Michael. The very I think the slide that I showed at the beginning of my kickoff, where I had the 4 steps, right? Step one, personal productivity enhancement, all the way to step 4, the frontier employee. That was done using exactly what Michael's showing you here. I went in and said, "Hey, here, create an infographic," and I just put that into that PowerPoint.
I love these.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And again, think of the time and the resource savings that this is leading to.
So boom, there we go. I mean, pretty cool. If you ask me, it would have taken me a whole lot more than, I don't know, the 45 seconds this took to run to do anything remotely close to this.
Yep.
So I mean, again, it's cool stuff like this, right? And again, just a different way of doing it, right? I just could have had the pop-up modal window tell me what this is, or I could have, if it was in Excel, just had it synthesize that, or I could have just been in there and ask it, or I can make an infograph. Again, there's no right or wrong way here. What I'm just trying to show you, there's many different ways of thinking, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying about the agents. Like once you get AI literate, you will look at how you're doing your day to day and be like, this all has to change, or I can totally change this in a different direction. So there's lots of really cool things we can do. All right, I know we're coming close to time. There's still some really cool stuff I want to show. Um, right, so here we go. And then next, I'm going to show you the co-work piece. Um, it will take too long to build for what I have, so I already have it. It's kind of like the cooking show where it's like we make it, we put it in the oven, and then whoa, we turn around and it's done. Same thing. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. We'll let it start to build, but it will take too long. So I'll just show you what kind of the output of that. So again, what I'm showing here is in email. So I am in chat. I'm not in Outlook, right? And what I asked Copilot to do is draft basically a benefit announcement email to the employees. I gave it some information I want. It kind of gave me the high level, right? Here's the subject line, here's the email body. But again, the cool part here is I'm still in chat. So I could just go in here and what's the other account in here? This guy. It's my other account. And send. And boom, so I have sent this email right from chat. I didn't have to open up Outlook. I didn't have to copy anything over. I can send my emails right from here. So if this is the workflow, and again, you do you. You work how you want to work. This is how I work, right? I almost exclusively throughout the day am in the Copilot chat, and I am asking it about my emails. I am sending emails. I am doing all of these things, right? All from here. To me, this is kind of my what do they call that? Not the dashboard, but like your ground central, whatever that is, right? The like the space term, right? Of this is like everything. This is my whole thing here. This is how I operate. All my agents that I need are all here. And I could just keep going that. But boom, I just was able to ask it to produce an email body and it did all of that for me. And all I did was put in an email account and hit send and it sent it all from here. And that individual has already gotten that email. So very cool stuff. So let's go to cowork real quick. So I want to show this. So here's Cowork. Again, if you are not familiar, this is something that Claude has This is the partnership with Claude. Claude Cowork is runs under the idea of something that is called skills. A skill is something that is repeatable, meaning it's I want it to do this way every single time, right? So a great example of that is I have a LinkedIn post skill. So all I do is I type in what I want it to talk about, and then I say LinkedIn or LinkedIn posts. I have a couple different terminologies I will use, and it will always repeatably do the exact same style that I have over and over and over again. So this is kind of repeatably, again, these are some of the, the Microsoft ones that are ready to go right in here to where, again, you can prep for a meeting, organize your inbox, right? And again, these are some different ones that ran. So let me show you this guy. This is what I ran. I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago. But this is kind of what it looks like. So what I did here is I said, can you create an interactive HTML dashboard that uses the data from this spreadsheet? So we're going back to that spreadsheet with all the customer or employee sentiment right on there. And again, we had Copilot go in and create us a, kind of a dashboard within the spreadsheet. But maybe you don't want to be in there. Maybe you do not want to be in Excel. Maybe you want to be here and do those things. So again, it went through and it read it and it asked me a couple things and it kind of gave me its high level. And again, this took some time, but this is what it looks like. I'll refresh this real quick. So this is now my dashboard and this is fully interactive. Here we go. I can start on, and you see the filter responses are going down. This is the real deal. This is fully functional. All I did, right, was I asked Cowork to make this for me, and it did. It looked at that spreadsheet. Here's right? The different reasons. So it's pulled out the sentiment around the analysis around why they left, right? Would they come back here, right? I'm getting all of this information back in here. But again, this is just a different way that you can do this, right? Within here. So this is how, again, no one has to do what Mike does. This, I am very heavy on dashboards like this. I like to have them kind of almost my way, right? To was that Sinatra song, right? My Way. Um, the colors I want, the style I want, the buttons I want, the sliders I want, how my mind will consume this, right? Again, I could probably achieve something very similar in Excel. And again, if you are an Excel person, you love living in Excel, there is nothing wrong with that, right? This is just how I like to operate, right? I like to do these things in different areas. So this is a HTML page that it is generated. All of the back data within this is from that spreadsheet. Um, and again, I can toggle these things on and off. And again, I made this my way. You could make it your way, your dashboard, your way, right? However you want with the things that you want in it. But yeah, fully functional. Awesome stuff. I love Cowork. Cowork is awesome. I think it's great. These are the types of things you can do with it. Also, Cowork is kind of multifaceted. What I mean by that is, um, let's say that if you're not using Cowork, right, and you want to say maybe do some research, maybe throw that into a Word doc for whatever reason, and then you want a presentation to go along with that. That is separate tasks you're going to have to do, and we kind of did that today, right, where we went in and we had to do some stuff in a Word document. Then I took that Word document and I brought it over to PowerPoint and did that. This is all one shot stuff you can do within Cowork. I can go into Cowork and say, hey, do research on this subject or this customer or whatever it is, right? But also, I need you to put that into a Word document. And then I need a presentation for the executives around this too, that are kind of talking points to that and give it some direction. Go. Again, this is one of those things you go and do something else. This dashboard, I think, took 20 minutes to actually create. And it actually didn't work the first time. Some of these buttons didn't work. So all I did was I just reprompted it and said the buttons don't work. And then it went back and I think it was like 2 minutes later, it came back and said it's ready now. And it's what you see here. So again, don't be afraid to ask Copilot if it didn't do something right or you needed to revise something, ask it. It will do it again. I did it a couple times today. But it will do all of that. And again, you can say also make me a dashboard, right? It will do all of that in one shot. And again, like I said, it will take some time, probably 20-ish minutes, 15 minutes, depending on that. So you can go do something else. You can continue to prompt in there with other things in chat or if you're using other agents and stuff like that. So don't sleep on that stuff. Again, if you do have Cowork available in your environment, I highly recommend you start looking into it. this is going to be one of those things that changes how you work completely within that. So got about 5 minutes left. Let me know if there's questions. If you want to slap them in there, we can answer them. And again, we have another session coming up. I think it's in 2 weeks. In that, we're going to get into agents. So we're going to do a kind of give you like a pre what that's going to look like is we're going to look at some of the Microsoft ones, right? Like the lists you saw that was pulling from, that was created with the list agent, right? We're going to do a skill inside SharePoint, right? That's going to traverse some of our documents within a site. So we're going to build all that stuff out. Then we're going to do a SharePoint agent. We're going to build one in chat. And then we're going to go up to Copilot Studio agent. So, and we're going to talk about everything in between of why, again, one of the confusing things that comes out is a lot of people say, I don't know which agent to use when, right? And that's what this session's going to answer for you of which one do you pick for which reason. I have lots of folks that will just go straight to the Copilot Studio one just to like summarize a document or something like that. That is probably overkill for that, right? So we'll kind of explain the different agents, why you might want to use one over the other, kind of the benefits where this one will fall off, where it's like you can only do so much in this one, then you'll have to go to the next one, and then you can only do so much, then you got to go Copilot Studio. So we're going to get into all of that stuff. In our next session, we're going to get a little bit deeper with agents. Like I said, we'll start with the Microsoft ones, and then we'll get into building them live, right? Which is always fun for demos, as we saw today. But we'll be fine. It will work for everybody. But Brett, did you have any closing remarks on anything?
No, I think this has been a great intro. One thing that I would just remind people is because we're limited to the time, we don't get to go and show you every ounce of, boil the ocean, if you will, on that personal productivity. One thing that all of you should try is just like when Michael was in chat and he's clicking on, create, and he's going in and he's asking questions. You can do things like if some of you are in HR, we've talked a lot about legal, and Michael showed you a lot of HR scenarios. Also, I need you to realize how valuable that instant access to knowledge is, right? So Michael said, hey, I sometimes will go ask it things that's in my email, things that are in a Viva Engage community somewhere. But you can also, each of you should try this at your own work environment. Go in, make sure the work tab toggle is active, and say something like, I'm considering adopting a child. Do we offer benefits? And notice it will go and scour everything you have access to. And it'll come back and say, yes. Let's say you work for Contoso. 99 out of 100 of the people that I have run that prompt, it comes back and it'll say, yes, we do offer benefits. And it gives you the answer, right? And it says, here's the benefits you get as an employee of, let's say, Contoso, right? You can also do things like, hey, what is the process for taking days off? So imagine somebody onboarding into your organization, and instead of them having to go read a manual or they can just go to Copilot. So the trends that are happening, if you don't, I bring this up because if you don't find yourself doing and working this way, it's the future, right? So you should never in the history of the world ever go and do another search in a browser somewhere, like using Bing, Google, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, AOL, whatever your favorite search engine is. You should always go into Copilot. And if you need to go and compare two vehicles that you're thinking of buying, go click on the web toggle. Michael, show them where that web toggle is right next to work. Yep. And that lets you conquer the web, right? It'll go, and this is a second to none experience in saying, hey, I need to go do some research on something, whether it's personal, I'm traveling, I want to compare two things, I need to brush up on some concept that's important to my role, that there's a lot of knowledge out there on the internet. Click on the web toggle, then go over to work, which is where I spend most of my time, saying, hey, is my boss, do I owe my boss any follow-up on something? And that can be, he chatted me last week and I haven't responded. It could be that there's an email where I mentioned and I forgot or I didn't read it. It could be a plethora of things. And so just know this is the new way of searching for anything, and for not just searching, but getting the answers that you can trust, because there's always a reference behind every response you get back. And so anyway, I hope this served you well. And I'm excited for you to come back to the next session where a good friend of mine, James Hammonds, who is, I call him an agent aficionado, will do the keynote similar to what I did this morning to kick off the session. So you're not going to want to miss it. And again, that should get you another step into that whole process of letting you become this frontier employee within, hopefully, your organization. So that's it for me, Michael.
Great. Yeah. Thanks everybody for your time today. Again, Brent, Microsoft, thank you for co-presenting with this. This is awesome. Um, I'm 6 foot, so I got a long wingspan. Everything that we talked about today is like a sliver. There is so much it does, right? We just scratched the surface, and that's not meant to scare you. That's just to let you know there's so much here. There's so many different ways you can do things. I encourage you to explore it. Encourage you to try things. You are not going to break anything by prompting Copilot to look things up. So check it out. I hope to see everybody back in at the next one. Thank you, everybody.